We are on the border with Belgium and the Netherlands. Right next to me is a fence that used to be electrified to avoid people from occupied Belgium fleeing to neutral Netherlands. We are traveling back to the First World War. I wanted to show you this because this is a piece of history that was almost forgotten until a replica of the fence was built here in the early 2000s. What we see here is a replica. After the war, the fence was torn down rapidly, but some things should not be forgotten. With the outbreak of the First World War in 1914, both the Netherlands and Belgium claimed neutrality. They weren't involved in the war. Unfortunately, both are very small countries, and Belgium was invaded by the Germans early on in the war, creating a big problem for the Germans as the Netherlands was never occupied. Along big parts of the newly created hard border between occupied areas and the neutral or free areas, a problem arose. A lot of people from the occupied areas tried to find a way to the free world. To avoid people from escaping occupied Belgium into the Netherlands, the Germans started erecting fences that got higher and higher, and eventually more drastic measures were taken to put power on the lines. This would of course kill you when touched, because 2000 volts is not nothing, and that was exactly what the Germans were for. They wanted to avoid you from escaping to the free world. This fence was torn down after the war, but was reconstructed for a bit in the early 2000s to keep the memory alive of what the Doodendraad really was. That right there across the water here is a border post. I'm going to walk there now. This fence was on the Belgium side of the border as it was in 1916. I've now walked back to the Netherlands to get to the border post we saw just a few minutes ago. Let's see if I can find it. Yep, that's the border post. Douanepaal van de Admiraliteit van de Mazen uit 1662. Hier bij de kruising van de wegen van Budel, Leende en Maarhezen na Hamont en Achel vond heffing van konvooien en licenten plaats. Before we continue to another part of the fence that was built just a few hundred meters away, I want to show you that we are really right on the border. This is border post 174 between Belgium and the Netherlands, erected in 1843, a few years after the Netherlands and Belgium split from each other. See, 174, 1843. Where the fence we saw earlier was erected just after the turn of the century, this one, right behind me, is only 10 years old. This 200-meter section is an extension of the Doodendraad that was erected a few hundred meters to the south from here. And it is more complete and it's out in the open, so it gives a better view of how it looked like 110 years ago. The inner wires were powered 2000 volts, and these wires on the outside were to prevent you from accessing the Netherlands, where we are now, from occupied Belgium. It was possible to cross into the Netherlands legally during the war, but travelers would need a so-called passiersschein, but those were increasingly hard to get. Men between the ages of 15 and 55 were not eligible at all, for example. Achtung! Hochspannung, Lebensgefahr. There were several ways to escape into the Netherlands though. One of them is using a wooden drum and crawl through it. Or just put a plank on top of it. Or even make a proper entrance. But yeah, the thing is, you were potentially shot on sight by the Germans. Imagine it being 1915, 1916, around that time somewhere, once these fences were erected. We are in the Netherlands now, and you weren't able to cross into Belgium. You don't want it to really, because it was occupied and we were neutral. But imagine you being in Belgium and coming from the other side, trying to escape. The fences were live wired with 200 volts, and all guards were ordered to kill on sight if you tried to cross. Nowadays, over 100 years later, this area is the Schengen area. I can't remember the last time I traveled into Europe and had to really stop for a border. Back in the day with Germany it was the case though, but the Benelux, not so much. Benelux is the name for the intergovernmental cooperation between Belgium, the Netherlands and Luxembourg. It was created in 1944 when the governments in exile of these three countries signed a customs union. It can be seen as a model for the later EEC and now EU. It was also the Benelux states that kicked off the Schengen area, which started in 1985. See? No border. The border roughly runs through this little piece of green here, and then following the Doodendraad right here. And here the border is painted on the road. This piece of recreated history is located in open fields and can be visited for free anytime you like. One more section of the Doodendraad, and the story here is that it was built straight through the wall of the abbey.